HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won, yeah. I hope my team they won, yeah. Man, I hope my team they won, yeah. I hope my team they won, yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the jab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the boss. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy, you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that SWAC, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay, tune into the HBCU Sports Lab, with Dr. Cavil, Mike and Charles, and I'm too tired,
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. I started to give a shout out a little bit to Ryan, but you know, he lost his way a couple of times first. Went down to Southern. Glad to finally get back to Prairie View. Then he went with the Blue Boys. He decided to be a Phi Beta Sigma. This dude's just confused. Then he came on and helped us with the show. Got lost and went on to the East Coast.
So they found something else to do.
Man, this brother here, he gonna do what he gonna do.
Right. Yes.
Shout outs to Ryan. Give him quite a bit of love, making sure that everything is going right. So just want to make sure we give him a good shout out. But all is different in the world today. We'll get the chance to get into a little bit of that and give you some updates. Again, this is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, presented by us. Welcome and thanks for joining us inside our studio lecture hall, the HBCU Sports Lab, for the only weekly sports talk radio show that is dedicated to exploring the sporting HBCU diaspora, including the marching sport, with its unique HBCU cultural identity, the teams, the bands, coaches, athletic directors, commissioners, provosts, presidents, big rivalry matchups, classic games, homecoming events, as well as cancellations and suspensions of games. Wow. And much, much more of the HBCU athletic aesthetics. As we emerge our lecture with sports business practices in competitive sports industry, the show seeks to provide innovative, progressive, informative dialogue about the week's HBCU sporting events, issues, and ideas from a fan's perspective. We review the Southwestern Athletic Conference, better known as the SWAC, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, better known as the NCAA Division I Conference. I think Mike has made it here with his grand entrance. We also review the NCAA Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, GCAC of the NAIA, and independent programs such as Tennessee State of the OVC, Hampton of the Big South, Langston of the Sooner Athletic Conference, and Texas College as an affiliate member of the Sooner Athletic Conference for football, as well as Edward Waters as they transition to the NAIA, to the NCAA Division II, and member to the SIC. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, a.k.a. the Dean of College of HBCU Sports. It's recently given by Rob Calloway, the HBCU Sports Report. Just want to give him a shout out as well as we let Mike get hooked up there a little bit. Mike, I also have to work to speak into this mic as well. Okay. Because that's so to make sure they hear you on the airways in Houston. Okay. So they'll hear you in terms of the world, but they might not hear you riding down the street in Houston if you're not speaking into the other mic. So
they'll hear me.
Yes, indeed. Good job there. So with that, Charles, we'll let you get to it as we're expecting a big time call.
Well, I'm already getting text. Social distance. Yeah. We have to display.
Yeah.
Social distance.
We tried to set up the room, but the problem was we was gonna put somebody on one mic far in, as we were actually setting up, that the problem you have in here is the camera angles. We couldn't figure out a camera angle, and I didn't want to leave somebody off the camera, but we might move to that as we work around and find it out. I looked at a couple of camera angle shots in here. One of them is to the far right corner, as we talked about off screen, but you get like the backside of the equipment in here. And you could get a decent shot with everybody, but we'll have to figure that out a little bit. But yeah, cleaned everything, and they've cleaned everything in the studio.
Yeah,
so from that perspective,
you can see all the precautions and the cleaning utensils and things in here. I think I have done our due diligence, if you will. So.
Yeah, we'll find out in 2 to 14 days.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yes,
with that, I do want to say we want to bring you the HBCU Sports in the News. I think it's going to be extremely important this time of the year that we're able to do that, because there's going to be a lack of that information out there. But we'll do everything in our power to do that. But certainly safety is first. And everybody out there, take a serious look at this. Lives are literally dependent on this.
Very much so.
You know, as a numbers person, a data person, Charles can testify. Starting last week, I was scheduled to go to Norfolk on Thursday, scheduled to fly into Birmingham on Friday, and fly out. And so I started talking about, I don't know, this is not looking good on Wednesday night. And as more information came out, didn't know. Shout out to Granger, the VP of Intercollegiate Athletics at Texas Southern University. I got to work with him and his leadership team in regards to how they were going to make moves. I think he did a significant job. He was ahead of a lot of ways. He was even ahead of the SWAC. And trust me, the SWAC leadership was ahead of most organizations. They were right in line with what we refer to as the Power 5 conferences in terms of the SEC and Big 12. I think he'll get into a little bit about that in regards to how he was able to be so in front of a lot of things. And, certainly, it is with great emotion that we talk about that he was in those leadership squares, which is extremely important. So just wanted to give a little backdrop. So Wednesday night, I literally canceled my trip to Norfolk. And then Thursday, as the day continued to move through, ultimately had to cancel that one as well. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then you got the big news in terms of all spring sports. And while I was saying these things were going to come in a lot of ways, Charles, it still was a surprise.
Yeah. Totally understandable.
I do want to give a shout out to the new broadcast that you're on, 1400 Club, that you were able to get some information on. Listen to Carlos. I thought they did a tremendous job in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But it's fascinating. You will hear for the next 20 years, not only about COVID-19, better known as the coronavirus, but you'll hear about all these different groups that swore that he was going to win the basketball tournament. And it was entertaining and fascinating to hear. You listen to Carlos' show. Obviously, they have a core fan base of Southern University. They cover the rest of SWAC. But you had a lot of folks that were poking their chests out. Southern's going to do this. Southern's going to do this on the men's side. Yeah. But it was amazing how they were talking about both men's and women's. So I get a chance, as I said, of working with Texas Southern and Granger. The Texas Southern Tigers and their group, boy, the ladies were fired up. They were ready. The men were playing their best game on Tuesday of the year.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
They were going to get it done.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
You listen to Dr. Prince over there at Prairie View. Oh, they did what they were supposed to do to close out the season, and they back-to-back champions because they automatic. And he was just talking about they were going to do the back-to-back, meaning they were going to win the regular season both years and the tournament both years. So he had made up in his mind that Prairie View was going to get it done, certainly on the men's side.
Yeah.
Then I listened to 1400 Club, Jack Staten. This just closed the deal for me. I say fans or fanatics, I don't care where they at, what's going on. I listened to the show, and all three of them. As much as I heard Charles of his case, he got the bug too. Wasn't the coronavirus bug. This was the fan bug. Jackson State fan bug. Yeah, they were fired up. They were men. They drew it all out, Mike. Big snacks.
I think all fan bases were all thumbs up, all ready to go.
Now I will say this: the sad point is the fact that there are legitimate arguments that all four of those teams on the men's side, all four of the teams on the women's side, had legitimate shots of cutting down the nets. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, that's what's going to make this argument even have further wings in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think we have a timeout, and then we're going to get to our caller on the line. So this is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop in the studio as we're giving you HBCU news, 1230 KCOH The Source, and we'll get ready when we come back to come to our caller. I believe it is Dr. Charles McClelland, the commissioner of the SWAC.
And Stephanie Bisco's in the house.
No, we have to pick him up now.
I want you to see all you can see in 2020.
What's going on, Stephanie?
It's the tax
let's keep the president.
It's
This
the
president.
reason to buy a car.
I know you need a laugh. How you doing? Hold on, we'll be with you in a minute,
Call me
okay?
at 713-433-4000.
Good to hear your voice. Hold
You've
on.
been waiting on your down payment? You got it now. Come see me. That's
Got it
the
right there.
Tax season savings going on right now at Bayway Price.
When I get ready to bring man, just hit the button.
What selection do you have over here?
What about a Dodge
I'll
Ram?
stay
What
there.
about a Chrysler 300? And you know I
Like
love
2
the
minutes.
Dodge
2 or 3
Charger.
She loves that black Dodge Charger, y'all.
Come see me right now at Bayway, Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge in Pasadena.
If you need
Well,
reliable
regardless,
transportation, give Stephanie a
regardless,
call.
man,
Come
somebody let me in
on
down
by.
there.
Yeah, somebody let me in. Yeah.
Regardless, down there when I
Let me help
came.
you establish
Yeah.
or reestablish your credit.
Right here at Bayway Price.
It was a lady, looked like cleaning lady. She let me in.
You can see in 2020.
Look, Hispanic.
Yeah, black.
If you want to make your
Yeah.
taste buds very happy, take them to Doris's Kitchen, where flavorful, traditional American soul food is their specialty. Choose from their wide selection of filling and satisfying dishes prepared with your enjoyment in mind. Chicken, fish, chops, shrimp, wings, and burgers. Get fried chicken or juicy baked chicken, smothered pork chops,
You have any other
or
call,
raw
dude?
quartering oxtails,
No, that's
turkey
it.
wings
Don't
with a
pretty
side
much
of
the whole
rice,
thing.
cabbage, pinto beans, mac and cheese, woo, collard greens, okra and sausage, black-eyed peas, yams, and more. You'll love their grilled chicken or grilled shrimp salad. You can order any traditional American favorite, like the Big Juicy Carolyn Burger.
About 2.5
It's a
minutes.
combination of quality beef with grilled onions, jalapenos, bacon, and barbecue sauce, served on a healthy bun. Call 832-649-8523. Doris's Kitchen, 9509 Scott Street between Airport and Reed Road. Your taste buds will thank you.
This is Michael Harris. Making final arrangements for a loved one shouldn't be difficult. I found everything I needed and more at Mabry Memorial Mortuary, a staple in Houston's 3rd Ward and servicing families in the greater Houston area for over 20 years with professional and caring services for all funeral, cremation, and memorial needs. Centrally located at 5000 Alameda Road, offering 4 uniquely designed chapels and an in-house repass option, plus in-home streaming, quality merchandise, and aftercare guidance, all at reasonable and customary pricing.
And on behalf of our entire staff, this is Justin Mabry. We welcome you to stop by for a personal tour, as well as available to discuss all at-need and pre-need concerns. Mabry Memorial Mortuary, 713-942-7673, and our website, mabrymortuary.com.
Have you dropped your dental partial and cracked it? Has a tooth fallen off? No need to wait 2 or 3 days for a repair. At Sunnyside Dental, we have an in-house dental lab. In most cases, we can fix that denture or partial while you wait. That's right, same-day denture repair while you wait. Call Sunnyside Dental, 713-738-1999.
I just listen to show.
713-738-1999.
Oh, I'm not looking at it.
Let's get that
Jumping
denture
up.
fixed, because you know what?
Yeah.
You cannot go to church like that.
Last one, you ready? 1
Fred
minute.
Hoyer coming to you from Bayway Lincoln,
1
your
minute.
Lincoln dealers for the last 24 years. But service is key. Bayway and Fred Hoyer winning tradition for 24 years. So call Fred Hoyer today at 281-929-6500. 281-929-6500 for your next new or pre-owned car from Bayway Lincoln. Your credit, bag credit, your job is your credit. Give me a call at 281-929-6500. That Fred Bayway Lincoln make it happen for you this year on Lincoln Navigator. Howlers, we can do KZ, we can do KC, and the all-new new costume and the new aviator coming soon. Call Red Warrior today at 281-929-6500.
Call Fleet Manager Fred Hoyer, 281-929-6500. Bailey Lincoln, 45 South, Gulf Freeway at the Fuquay exit. Call 281-929-6500. Bailey Lincoln, a part of the Bailey.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. I want to say welcome back, and we have our guest on the line, Dr. Charles McClelland, the SWAC Commissioner. Welcome in, Charles. How you doing today?
Hey, doing fine. How are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good. You know, working on a little volume there, getting a volume. You know how we like to play with you, Charles, in regards to making sure that everybody can hear the conversation here. With that, Charles, has it? First question I have is you saying you were gone, but how is the family and how everybody in the office doing?
Everybody's doing well. We have no reported cases of the coronavirus. As my father said, I was in New York, and he said I was in a hot spot. But it seems like we being sequestered and kind of being away from everybody proved to allow us to get in and get out. Everybody in the office is good. We were able to get everybody dispersed from the basketball tournament. It seems like everybody is in good health at this point.
Certainly. Wanted to go a little inside the emotions of the 2 days and what transpired for those didn't have a front seat like yourself did during this. First thing before we get in there, you just talked about your flight back. How was that? How was the airport? How was the flight in regards to the number of people on the flight when you came back at that point already?
Actually, I felt probably the most safe throughout the entire process at the airport and on the flight. I flew out of LaGuardia. I got there going back from New York to Birmingham. I left extremely early because of traffic in New York and, you know, the traffic in the airport. There was 0 cars.
Wow.
On
New York.
On Broadway, right? I had to go to the Bell stand to get a private vehicle to take me. I think we saw 2 taxis. No traffic to the airport. When I got into the airport, a lot of people won't believe this, but I was the only person in the TSA line at LaGuardia. So I left early. Plane left at 8:05. I think I left around 5 o'clock to try to get there. At 5:45, I was sitting at the gate. There was a flight that left before mine at the same gate going to Washington Reagan. 3 people got on that flight.
Wow.
And on the way back from New York to Birmingham, I think we had 13 on mine. I knew then that I needed to get my kids to Birmingham, that this industry and this economy was getting ready to start to go in the route in which it's already going, where cities and airlines and things of that nature were going to start to shut down. There's no way, in my opinion, that the airline was going to be able to continue to fly empty flights with no one on them, and we're starting to see that happen now.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a great point. You illustrated in an extremely commanding fashion. With that said, as we'll get into what's next, financial component of it a little later in the show, and Charles and Mike may have some direct questions they want to do on that. But if you would, I'd like for you to take us back into that room as much as you are allowed to talk about. But before we do that, I believe most people have heard that you, as a commissioner, you're on the Division I basketball committee. But for those that may not really understand what that means, can you provide some information on who's on that committee or the type of people on that committee, and why is that a significant committee for a commissioner, any commissioner, but certainly from the SWAC?
Yeah, well, there are 4 commissioners that are on the committee, and myself, Tom Burnett, the commissioner of the Southland, Bernie McGlade, the commissioner of the Atlantic 10, Craig Thompson, which is the commissioner of the Mountain West. And then there are 6 athletic directors, the chair being Kevin White, the athletic director at Duke, The athletic director, Mitch Barnhart of Kentucky, is the second vice chair, which will be the chair next year. A guy, a really good guy. He's very personal, very energetic. Jim Phillips, the athletic director at Northwestern. That's my guy. I love Jim.
Nice.
Jamie Pollard, the athletic director for Iowa State. Another good guy, Chris Reynolds, which is the athletics director at Bradley, is also on the committee, and I'm missing someone else. I'm supposed to know all 10 really off the top of my head, but 6 athletic directors, 4 commissioners that ultimately make up, this committee. And again, a great group, a great working group. And we are responsible for not only selecting the 68 teams, but seeding the 68 teams, bracketing the 68 teams. And once we get the field, the seeds, and the brackets put together, we are responsible for running all of the regional sites as well as the Final Four. So we were scheduled to leave New York on Sunday, back in Birmingham on Monday. I was assigned to the Tampa regional, myself and Mitch, Kentucky AD. We were going to be there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wow.
I came back to Birmingham that following Sunday after Saturday game, so I had the Thursday, Saturday game.
Okay.
We will be in Birmingham on Sunday, into the office on Monday, back out on the Tuesday. I had the Indianapolis regional.
Wow.
We would have been in Indianapolis, myself, Mitch, and Chris Reynolds, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Came back Sunday. Would have been in the office on Monday, and then that Tuesday we would have been on the way to Atlanta for the Final Four. So we were responsible for running the regionals and running everything from officials to game day operations, obviously in conjunction with the NCAA staff. But that 10-member group makes up, runs, and does everything in regards to March Madness and the Final Four, as well as working with CBS and Turner, the television partners, all of the basketball officials, just everything that is encompassed in March Madness, everything runs through that committee. And ultimately, it was the committee that made the recommendation not to play March Madness this year, which went to Dan Gavitt, the senior vice president of basketball, and it ultimately went up to the board. The board approved the recommendation, and no games are being played.
So to get that information, what access did you have, or the group, I should say, excuse me, in regards to reviewing, and when did you all as a group start actually reviewing it?
Well, we got there again on that Tuesday, and that Tuesday, the first thing that we did was we had a big dinner with the CBS executive. So everybody that's a part of March Madness from the CBS perspective, out of the New York office, met us for dinner, had a big reception. It was kind of ironic. The executive that I sat with from CBS was a mile away from the containment zone of New Rochelle, New York.
Wow.
So that's when things really started to kind of hit home. On that Tuesday, there was an outbreak of the coronavirus, and they actually deployed the National Guard.
Wow.
At New Rochelle. And in applying the National Guard, they did not restrict in and out. They said it was more so to make sure that the elderly had people to go get things for them. But, anytime you employ the Army, they're doing a lot more than just looking. So that kind of opened our eyes. So on that Wednesday, we got in the room, and we started, our preliminary business. And the preliminary business is kind of, before you start bracketing, checking off various things that you're supposed to do. It's kind of like, crossing your T's and dotting your I's before you get started. You're a professor. It's almost like going over your syllabus and letting everybody know what the expectations are, bringing in everybody, going over, the do's and don'ts, officiating, sites, things of that nature. And right in the middle of that process, Dan Gavitt had to get up and leave. He stayed gone for about 3 hours, maybe even longer. He came back up, updated us to let us know that the board looked at the environment and they were recommending that we play the games without fans. So by this time, all of the different conferences are calling, and keep in mind there are 4 commissioners and 6 different athletic directors from 6 different conferences in the room. So we're getting information from all of those conferences. We're making decisions on our conference. So at that time, we put out from a SWAC perspective that we're going to play with just, family and friends. Such a big change for what we did. We decided that it was time to break because, mentally we needed to wrap our heads around what was just made from a decision-making process. So we actually broke. We went to dinner. Another sign that things were digressing kind of rapidly. We went to dinner. Not a lot of people out on the street. We're staying in Times Square. There are people there, but not a whole lot of people. And the restaurant that we went normally has an hour or 2 wait because we're the NCAA basketball staff that go there quite often. They had a room reserved for us, and ironically, we were the only one on the floor, let alone in the room. So again, kind of another indication things were not going well. Come back, and I guess this is Thursday. We all excited, so we start the process of trying to put teams within the field. And the chair had to get up and take a conference call, which again is another red flag. So as the chair is taking this conference call, word started to spread from different athletic directors. The first athletic director really was the athletic director, Jim, from the Big Ten at Northwestern, saying, hey, we think the Big Ten is getting ready to not play its game. Then the SEC, then the ACC. So by this time, Bernie from the Atlantic 10 started to get on the horn. I started to get on the horn. Kevin was gone. So very quickly, we realized that everybody at the same time was saying, no, we're not going to play. And ultimately what happened on that, the Power Five got together and decided as a group they were not going to play. And as that word kind of transcended out, being in the room, I was able to get a handle on what was going on with SWAC. Fortunately, we were not playing, but we were in the middle of all of this, in the middle of all of the decision-making process. So we were able really to call and say, hey, hold up, let's get a conference call. We started getting text messages saying teams were on the road and we need to turn around. And we said, well, we're not saying turn around, but, if you're driving 80, slow down to about 55. Let's get on a conference call. I was late for my conference call because we ultimately had to take the vote about whether or not we think it was right to proceed. So when we made the announcement in the SWAC, we did not get a lot of backlash, only because others had already canceled their tournament. But at the same time, at that point in the conversation, we knew that there was not going to be any March Madness. So for some of the athletes to start to say, well, who's going to represent us in the tournament? We knew earlier.
You worried about the wrong thing?
That it wasn't going to be a tournament. So NCAA had to get back with the board of directors, and then probably, we had to sit in the room because they didn't want us talking to anybody or giving it away or letting it leak to the media. So once the board of directors made the announcement, we kind of got together, had kind of a final dinner, and then that's when we departed that Friday morning. So that pretty much is a rundown of how the events work inside the room.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Let me let Charles jump in here. He seems very anxious as he.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask Dr. McClelland. Obviously, there will be no March Madness, but I'm curious now about the financial ramifications as to how an entity like March Madness kind of trickles down to our conference, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, HBCUs in general, and on the Division I level. But what are the financial ramifications for not having this tournament?
Well, I would answer that with a question. If you lost 70 to 80% of your income in your household, what do you think happened?
Yeah.
And
most of us.
I think that's the answer to the question. There are going to be ramifications, right? Most people don't have 80% or 70% or 50% in reserve, right? Most people reserves are invested. If you're invested in the stock market, you're already 30% down. So what do? Ultimately, everybody's going to be affected. Ultimately, and I said this earlier, a lot of people take shots at the NCAA about what they're not doing for the student athletes, but a large portion of the NCAA money goes back to the conferences and schools. So you're talking about at our level money for summer school. That's where our summer school money comes from, hundreds of thousands per school. That money is in jeopardy. Is all of it going to leave? Is a portion of it going to leave? We don't know. I would say from a conference office standpoint of our overall operating budget, about 60% comes from the NCAA. They're going to be hit. You lose that piece of the pie. There are going to be some hits. So I think the trickle down is gonna be real. I think from a conference office, what we do is we rely on our fiscal policy, which we've already tightened our belts. You're looking at a conference that had over $1 million deficit last year and was able to turn around in a surplus. We're going to have to employ some of those same strategies. So there's going to be adjustments that are going to have to be made on our end. But what I can tell our listeners is that not that we foresaw this coming, but we wanted to make sure that if there were any issues that came up financially, we were going to be able to withstand. We're going to have to make some difficult decisions, but we'll be fine. We're not going to have to lay anybody off. Nobody's going to miss a check. But, we might have to look at where we were going to distribute money this year, probably have to hold on to that to help compensate for what we don't get from the NCAA. If we hit our goals, we can still distribute at a later date. We're going to have to do some cuts. We cut out all spring sports. That'll be a savings. We'll have to take that, hold that and couple it with what we saved last year. And this is going to be a multi-year deal.
Okay.
When I say multi-year deal, for the revenue that we don't get this year, it's going to take a couple of years for us to recover from it. But I do think from a Southwestern Athletic Conference perspective, we're in pretty good shape to be able to recover, unless the NCAA comes and says nobody gets anything, which I don't anticipate they will. But we'll be able to take a significant cut, probably up to about 50%. Anything over 50%, I think not only our conference but other conferences are going to start to suffer.
Certainly. Mike, you want to follow up with a question?
Yes, Dr. McClelland. Thank you again for sharing some of the detailed aspects of when you made the decisions, how you made the decisions. My question is, obviously you were in the upper levels of the war room last week, and we know now more than we knew last week. And last week this virus was changing hour by hour. So obviously you and the committee had some challenges and obstacles that you had to really think about and negotiate. Tell us, if you will, some of the key and the most significant challenges and obstacles and any contingencies that you guys may have had to deal with before making those critical decisions.
Well, I would say keep in mind it wasn't our charge to deal with the coronavirus, right? Our charge was to select, bracket, and seed teams. The coronavirus actually interfered with that process. So realistically, our decision not to play was a decision that we had no choice. And you heard it already publicly, but when Rudy Gobert tested positive and the NBA shut down their season, that's ultimately where it hit home. I think we all fully expect to be able to protect our student athletes. You know, you could sanitize, you could self-isolate with just the student athletes. They were already there together, right? But I think it hit home when the basketball player, Rudy Gobert, actually tested positive. And it was like, well, we are not exempt from this. So that's when, you know, the coronavirus actually took over. So there are all of these different governing bodies that are made up of the NCAA, the Power Five commissioners got together with their boards, with their athletic directors. And as all of these individual decisions started to be made, it affected what we as a committee were supposed to do. I think there were a couple of things as a committee we dealt with. One, do we want to have a modified tournament? And two, do we want to release brackets so people can still have that feel of NCAA tournaments? And I think in the room, overall prevailing thing was no. We're not going to be able to play this tournament whether we have 16 teams or 68 teams. And two, you can't effectively bracket if you've got still 128 odd games left to be played to determine who qualifies for the tournament. It's almost impossible to do it just by the way that the formula is set up. So, you know, once we came to the reality, and I think that was probably the biggest piece, is the reality of what this virus was. I think when you're in the room, when you're a commissioner, when you're an athletic director, when you're in the NCAA, you're doing everything within your power to play the game. And all of your decision making is centered towards all of the signs as to why you can play the game, right? None of us was really thinking about all of the signs not to play the game. It became extremely evident after Rudy Gobert that we had to start looking at the signs as to why we should not play the game, and those were overwhelming. The health and safety and well-being, not just of the people that were on the floor, but everybody else. And you look at the institutions, they're going online. They're saying you break for spring break, don't come back. But yet we're going to have the student athletes on campus. Yet we're going to leave the dining hall open. Yet we're going to leave the dorms open for the student athletes. We're going to let them practice. We're going to let them participate. And then we're going to send them out. You know, a lot of that didn't make sense given where we were. So once we really got the dose of reality of what this virus really is, and it is something that nobody has ever seen before in their lifetime, right? You got to go back to the bubonic plague back in the 1920s to be able to associate with something that we're going through. The city of San Francisco is under a 2 to 3 week quarantine. Don't leave your house. Don't go outside. New York is talking about it. When you get to this point, it's serious. It's not just about basketball. So I think when you talk about, you know, some of the things that was on the board, everything that was put on the board really was a subset to, we could die if we don't make the right decision. We could be responsible for people dying if we don't make the right decision. The right decision is to shut this thing down, let's go home, whatever happens, happens. But at least we'll be able to pick up the pieces later. You can't pick up the pieces dead. So. I don't know if that answers your question, but
it certainly does. So,
right.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Dr. McClelland, let me ask this question. With no spring sports going forward, what does the conference office do now?
Well, we still have quite a bit to shut down. I mean, it's not just like turning the key off and saying we're done. We're looking at the 100 now. We have contracts out for the 100, but the way that this virus is going, it does not look like we're going to be able to host the 100. You know, a large majority of the people that we are targeting are the elderly and the people that might have some underlying illness, because we're honoring people, you know, that's been around and have made significant contributions in the SWAC. A lot of those are elderly, right?
That's right.
If this thing lasts the way that they're saying, we're going to be on into the summer. Even if it lasts another 6 weeks, right? How do we really know? People are going to be reluctant to come. We don't want to do something and not do it correctly. Also, schools are shutting down. The 10-member institutions are instrumental in us pulling this thing off. They're not going to be fully functional. So we got to make decisions about that. We got spring sports. We have cities that we have to deal with. We just signed a deal with baseball with Jackson, Mississippi. We got to shut down. We got hotel contracts that we have to shut down.
Yeah.
We got trophies. We got T-shirts. We got a building move. We got legislative relief that we have to work for with the student athletes. Do they get the spring sports? Do they get the year back? What does financial aid look like? How does the national letter of intent look like? How does pro day look? Do we have spring? All of these are questions that we receive that we have to go through. So, you kind of shift from putting on championships in the spring to shutting down, making sure that our student athletes have the best possible, oversight to making sure that their interests are looked out for when it comes to all of these decisions that are going to be made. What does online look like, right? What does progress towards degree completion look like? There's a lot that we have to do. Right now, we are working from home. I told everybody that we will do a reduced schedule tomorrow. I did that on Sunday, but after reassessing everything, crowds less than 10, we said we're going to continue to work from home. We just want everybody to be safe. But there's a lot of work to be done. And once we get everything turned off, it'll be time to start turning the key to get everything turned on again. So we have a lot of plans. We got a lot of, procedural things that we have to do. So there are a lot of things that we have not gotten to because we have not had time. We'll start working on those things, and those are the crossing the T's and dotting the I's type things. So there's a lot of work to be done, and hopefully it'll sharpen us for what comes for the next upcoming season.
Yeah. Mike, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just one follow with all of this that you're managing, up, down, sideways, the media. You're dealing with the NCAA. How has the engagement with the alumni base been, and how supportive or even non-supportive have they been? We've heard a lot of things on the social media. I would think they'd be supportive, but I'd be interested to get your perspective on how supportive the alumni bases for the respective HBCUs have been in the whole decision-making process.
Well, I think they've been extremely supportive. And again, you have a large portion that are elderly with underlying conditions, and they said very clearly, shut it down, right? So
they say we're good.
We're good.
Yeah, my father told me, and again, I keep using his word. I was in a hot spot in New York. He said, "Stay in Birmingham. Don't come to Jackson."
I love Mr. McClelland. That sounds like it too.
It sounds just like him.
It sounds very much like it.
Yeah. We can talk on the phone.
Yeah.
I don't think that the alumni, has been nothing but understanding and supportive. I think the real issue are the student athletes, right? Mm-hmm. How many of our student athletes don't really have a home to go to?
Right.
How many of them have nothing to look forward to? I always use my kids as an example, but I use Canaan at Jackson State. Mm-hmm. All 8 teams, 4 men and 4 women, they all thought they were going to win the SWAC championship coming to Birmingham.
Yeah,
right?
We talked about that.
So they all, I heard from all teams. we were gonna
so y'all see, I wasn't just telling the tale, see?
Right, yeah, we were going to win that thing. So I use my son as an example. They're on the bus. They're 10 minutes out of Jackson, headed to Birmingham. A team that won, and I don't know the number, 7 of the last 11 or whatever it was, but they felt like they were on a roll. They liked their matchup against Prairie, right? Texas Southern and Southern. Southern liked their matchup against Texas Southern, so we're all going. Even if we lose, right, I still get to see my buddies all the way up until graduation. 10 minutes into the road trip, they get a call and they said, turn it around, go home. They have a team meeting and they said, go home for good. So within an hour time frame, they went from getting ready to go of the most exciting time in their basketball career to be able to play for a championship to I'm not going to see my teammate or friend again. I don't even get to see you over spring break. And as I talked to my son, he was like, Dad, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. Wait a minute, so it sounds like you suicidal.
Let's talk.
You're going to jump off the roof, right?
Yeah.
So again, we talk about the mental health of these student athletes. Some of them, this is all that they had to look forward to. And,
Absolutely.
What do I do? Where do I go? So I'm not as concerned about the fans. We'll make it up as we go. I saw on TMZ that they betting on the weather. That's pretty sad when you got to bet on the weather.
Exactly.
So you got a problem. For any of you that's listening, if you put a bet on whether or not it's going to rain or not, you need
some help.
Yeah, you need to go get help. But part of what we're supposed to do is pick those pieces up and create that environment, and I think that's our biggest challenge. That's going to be the institution's biggest challenge. The fans will make it up, but the student athletes are the ones that we really need to keep our hands on.
Certainly. With that said, talking about the SWAC and the health of the SWAC, with this in time, and obviously you hadn't had a great deal of time to go into details, but where do you think the health of the SWAC is at this point right now?
I tell you what, I'm glad that I'm a year and a half in versus just if this was my first year, I would be extremely nervous, right?
Gotcha.
But I'm not nervous at all. I'm not confident. We had an ongoing deal in the office. I have to argue with my accountant, right? I'm an accountant, and I keep my own money. Then I have an accountant, so we argue all the time. And we're both alphas when it comes to money, so we just had these knockdown dragouts.
Well, that's a good thing.
But we had an interest-bearing account, and I guess this time last year we were getting 2% off of the money that was in the bank. And then as the economy started to kind of go down, it went from 2% to 1.75 to 1.5%. And I had a rule: I want our payroll account to be fully funded. So I agreed to let the first 3 months, let him put just the first 3 months in the payroll, and once December came around, I was like, put the rest of the payroll in the payroll account. And we argued. I had to order him, put the money in the account. I'm not going to jeopardize payroll over the $2,000 worth of interest that you're going to get for a couple months. I saw him today, and the first thing that he said was, man, I'm so glad you made me put that payroll.
I bet you would.
Well, yeah.
Account, right? So we're financially sound.
Good.
We're financially solvent. We're going to have to tighten the belts more. But, hey, quite frankly, at black colleges, that's what we do. Right. So I think we're in much better position than some of these other entities that are not accustomed to, making a dime out of 15 cents. So however the saying go, we're accustomed to that. Robin, Peter, Sam, Paul, we're accustomed to doing all of those things. So we're going to be fine. Some of the financial decisions that we made, for example, buying our own building, we're going to save about $3,500 a month in rent. Now, obviously, some of that will have to go to lights and things of that nature. But we're going to have a net savings by buying versus renting.
Yeah.
So those types of decisions, we're going to be in a pretty good place. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. But I'm glad we're in year 2 versus year 1. I probably would be a lot more nervous if I was in year 1.
Interesting.
No doubt about it. As we start to close and get to the top of the hour, one question I wanted to know before I allow you a chance to maybe share with us something that we didn't ask or didn't consider is one of the things to maybe reschedule the 100 if it gets to the point where you have to cancel it.
Yeah, I guess that was a question if we are considering that in the show.
No, I'm just saying you were saying that you were considering possibly cancel, but I'm saying if you had to get to the point where you cancel it, would you consider, I guess, rescheduling?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we would definitely consider rescheduling, but there's some different ideals that are out there. I think the 100, in my opinion, can only be done in 100. Doing the 100 at 101 kind of takes some of the symbolism out of it, but at the same time, we haven't had this event to honor our greats.
Yeah.
And part of us doing it the way that we wanted to do it, quite frankly, was going to take sponsorship.
Okay.
I don't know if America is going to be in the sponsorship move after this. So we have to really look at what we were doing and what we were trying to do in the financial implications, because we're not going to have the capital to put, $200,000 or $300,000 into this event and let it come out of our hide.
Right.
So we really are going to have to evaluate and see what's going to be best and what we can and cannot do. So it is a table, but we just have to see.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that and that insight. Extremely important things that we don't necessarily think about when you get down to what does it mean to put on an event. With that said, were there any information that you wanted to get out to the listeners that we didn't ask in terms of our questions?
Well, no. Again, it's a sad time when it comes to sports. I woke up one morning and rolled back over, went to bed almost in the sun. I didn't want to come off the roof, but it was what am I getting up for? I might as well just lay there. But I was asked a question in one of my interviews about alumni support and alumni giving, and I think the one thing that I will urge all of the alumni, I've always been extremely lenient on alumni because wealth is mostly generational, right? And we're probably 2 generations in at most. Yeah. And that's not that wealthy. So we haven't been accustomed to giving because we haven't had a lot to give. So as we start to accumulate wealth, we can put more pressure on those to give. But you can always give, whether it's, I can't tell you what level to give. But the one thing that I can say that will help your programs tremendously, I have a really good friend that asked me for 2 free tickets to the SWAC Basketball Championship, right? So because we had a tremendous amount of sponsorship, we actually lowered tickets. $10 for session 1, $10 for session 2, $15 for the championship game. So that's what, $15, $25, $35 for 4, 5, 6 basketball games. Right? You can't beat that. $35.
Can't.
They were bringing 3 people airline to Birmingham. They had 2 rooms for 4 nights. They were going to have to pay for food, and they were going to have to pay for rental car, and they called me and asked me for 3 free tickets. That's sad. Right. So if I could urge our fan base to do anything, buy tickets, right? Buy season tickets. Help your institution.
I like it.
That will go a long way. If you can't afford to donate to the athletic program, instead of asking for a free ticket or even not going to the game, buy a ticket, even if you're not going to the game. That will help your athletic program tremendously, and you will be giving back.
Amen.
Just think, just at Texas Southern. I know we took a lot of heat for the orange 22,000-seat stadium, but just think if there's 22,000 tickets bought at BBVA, the athletics department at Texas Southern, for each of their home football games, they wouldn't have to worry about donations.
Right.
They'll have enough money to run their athletics program. And it doesn't cost a whole lot. I just urge everybody to support their programs. If nothing else, don't ask for that free ticket. Buy a ticket, even if you don't go. That'll help your programs go a long way.
Yes, indeed.
Certainly. I want to thank you for your time, Charles.
Oh, here we go.
You know we're going to.
Here we go.
Got to give it here. Y'all got lucky, my earphones.
Here we go. See, that's why your phone plugged up.
Got lucky.
See, that's why your phone stuck.
I was trying to do my famous let everybody know there, Charles, but I'll give you a second just to listen to it before I let you go. Make sure.
It's your boy Rob Calloway, host of the HBCU Report, and right now you're inside the HBCU Sports Lab with my guy. All hail the of HBCU Sports. You know I named him that. Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, my guy. What's happening, man?
So you heard it, Charles.
Yes, sir, I did.
I just want to make sure you know how to refer to me.
Dr. McClelland, you should have told him, no, I didn't hear that. You should have said, no, I didn't hear that.
Well, hey, what I heard, I'm in Birmingham, what I heard was the king, right? That's what I'm referring to you from here on out. The king.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
See, Charles, I thought we were better than that. But on a serious note, really thank you for taking out the time and really giving us an inside analysis of what took place, where we're going from the SWAC moving forward. And it's good to have you at the helm in regards to the leadership of the SWAC, especially where we had saw and knew things just most recently. Continue the great work. Continue Godspeed. Continue to do that type of great work. And take care. Wishing your family and your leadership team at the SWAC office all the best.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
You guys be safe in Houston, too. I know it's, as my father say, a hot spot.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Yes, indeed.
Hey, this is one of the... I'm glad I'm in Birmingham.
No doubt about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.
Take it.
Take it easy.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As you heard the interview with Charles McClelland. Want to shout out to all the folks, followers, and listening. Thank you for jumping on. Usually we like to give you a shout out. Don't have time to do that, but just want to say thank you all for listening and checking us out. Continue to stay with us. We're going to give you SWAC. We'll be starting our summer session a little early where we talk about the business of sport. So we'll find out good information to provide you, just like we do over the summer months, getting you ready for what's taking place. Plus, we're going to give you an update. We'll be able to talk to the key stakeholders, as you saw, in regards to what are the updates as we move forward with COVID-19, better known as the coronavirus, in terms of what that looks like. And to be honest with you, is there even going to be a football season? We'll start having to look at that. I know that's further down the scales and people may not want to hear that, but we'll give you updates to see what that's looking like in terms of moving forward. With that, I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. Thank you for your time. Giving a shout out. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of College of HBCU Sports, with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As we come to a close, we hope you enjoyed our lecture today with the Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, Dr. Charles McClelland. Again, we thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday right here from 6 to 7 on KCOH 1230 AM, Houston, Texas. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Course lecture dismissed. Stay tuned, listen up. KCOH, the Source, 1230. Big things coming up.
And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it.
Your link is still 20 services.